What's up everyone, it's Karthik with Moneyvest. So we've got lots to discuss in today's video as Tesla absolutely gets crushed down over 9% on the day. The biggest loser in the S&P 500 down over $70 billion, getting erased from its market cap after the Tesla robotaxi event, for which we were live to cover that on the channel. And look, this is exactly why it is so important to learn how to trade options. I've been talking about this for such a long time on this channel, where if you simply learn this very important skill, you're going to be able to hedge your portfolio really well. So if you're watching this video, if you're a long-term Tesla shareholder, investor for Tesla or for any other stock for that matter, even if it's Nvidia or S&P 500 or Apple or any other company or stock out there, and you are comfortable with learning how to trade options and hedging your positions, you can generate, number one, some nice income on the side, which is going to generate some nice premiums. And number two, it's going to give you the opportunity to be a little bit more directional neutral. In other words, if the stock price goes up, great. If it goes down, even better, right? Because then you can accumulate more shares of your stock for the long term and also make money on the downside. S&P 500 hitting a brand new all-time high at over 5,815. The Dow Jones also crossing over 42,800, up over 400 points on the day, and the NASDAQ pushing up over 33 basis points. The big leaders on the day was financials, the banking sector after the start of the earnings season, with a lot of companies jumping, with JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, some of the few companies pushing higher really well. And this right here was my Tesla covered call, which was up over 99%, so almost 100% profit for this covered call on the day that I essentially closed out for a whopping almost 100% profit here. And I also sold the Celsius puts, which I ended up closing for a 75% profit today, because Celsius ended up closing above $33 if I'm not mistaken. So if you come over to CELH, Celsius of course has been doing pretty well this past week. It was actually just a little bit under $33. Actually pretty good that I closed out my calls right at the open when it was pushing higher, because had I not done that, I would have gotten shares assigned at $33 per share. So it's a good thing that I was able to close my Celsius puts at a 75% profit, and of course the Tesla calls at a 99% profit. And then I have another Tesla $300 calls expiring in November 15th that are currently up over 62%. So again, if you want to get access to all the trade alerts, find out exactly what I'm trading on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, link's going to be down below. We'd love to have you on board. Just a couple more spots left if you're interested in joining for the Moneyvest community. And if you're interested in learning more about how to trade options, getting access to all the 4 courses, this right here is going to be the better tier. And what I recommend is that if you're just getting started in learning about options trading, fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and psychology of investing, get access to this for a couple months, and then you can downgrade to the Moneyvest community tier, where you can get access to the Moneyvest website, the Discord access, everything's going to be available. But this is going to be very, very extensive. This is pretty much full access to the entire courses. All the way down, you can pretty much take a look at everything that you'll be learning as part of this entire tier. So again, link's going to be down below. We'd love to have you on board. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. So the big sectors on the day that were gaining higher, of course, financials was the big leader, up almost 2% gain on the day here. And if you come over to our Moneyvest website to market concentration, the S&P 500 pushing up about 0.5% to over $308 billion gain. Apple was down quite a bit, so it was down a little bit over 65 basis points, or just under $23 billion. And as a result, the big three were down at $19 billion collectively. Magnificent 7 down almost $40 billion thanks to Tesla, and top 10 were down $28 billion. And some of the big gainers and losers on the day, the biggest gain coming from JP Morgan, up over 4.4%, pushing up over $27 billion, with Amazon also pushing up $22 billion. Eli Lilly up over $13 billion, but then we did have a lot of banks. Bank of America, $16 billion, up over 5%, even though they report next week, pushing higher on the back of Wells Fargo and JP Morgan already. And Wells Fargo was up over $11 billion, up over 5.6% on the day. And of course, the biggest loser on the day was our very own Tesla, down almost 9% on the day, or over $73 billion getting wiped from its valuation. If you come take a look at the banking sector more specifically, and again, you can do that on our Moneyvest platform, 13 stocks in the S&P 500 collectively pushing up over 4.2% or $68 billion if you account for financial institutions or financial services as well. And now you've got 49 stocks, 11% weighting in the S&P 500, up over 2% collectively or $123 billion as well. So that was a big sector leading higher. We had industrials, real estate, utilities, all of these sectors pushing up. Technology, of course, lagging a little bit behind, especially QQQs on the back of course, Tesla numbers, Tesla, robotaxi event, and of course, selling off quite a bit. We've talked extensively on our live streams with regards to Tesla and what I thought about the event. And I've spent a lot of time on Twitter as well, kind of going through a lot of different tweets about the Tesla's event, and the consensus really is the timeline. I think it really comes down to the timeline for Tesla, and of course, discretionary was one of the sectors, also selling off down about 44 basis points on the day as well, which again includes Tesla stock, as part of the discretionary sector. So again, make sure that you watch those videos because it's going to give you a little bit more insight into my thoughts on Tesla, and of course the fact that it's down almost 9% and what that represents for the company on a more short-term and a long-term basis. So all of that is going to be in my other videos. But Tesla shares, of course, dropped 9% after Cybercab robotaxi reveal underwhelmed investors. And something that I've mentioned before is that this was never supposed to be an investors day type presentation. It was never supposed to be an event where Tesla is going to break down unit economics or business timelines and, different project updates in terms of the financials and the numbers and the profitability and the margins or things like that. It was never supposed to be an event to kind of woo the investors or analysts on Wall Street. It was a product unveil where Tesla was showing us what the vision looks like for the future and how are they planning to increase their potential revenue and what other products that they're going to be launching with regards to the Cybercab, the RoboVan. We've got the Optimus robot. We've got the energy part of the equation. So again, it was kind of like a Apple event where Apple's revealing new models for their products. Similar to that, we had the Tesla robotaxi event where they're unveiling new products. Of course, the only difference is that we don't know what's going to be the timeline for these product launches and when that's going to be available, when that's actually going to materialize into actual revenue and profits. So the uncertainty regarding timeline is the biggest reason why we're seeing a drop of over 9%, because as I mentioned before, Wall Street is very much focused short term. That's what they care about. That's it. Like if anybody's buying Tesla and you are not patient for the long term, then you're buying it for the wrong reasons, because right now, presently, you can make a strong case, and I'd be with you, that Tesla is overvalued here at 217, 220. Significantly overvalued in the 250s, overvalued in the 270s, 220s as well, simply purely based on electric vehicles. But it's not until, of course, after the Cybercab, the robotaxis, the FSD, unsupervised FSD, Optimus robot, that the artificial intelligence, robotics, and the component of technology comes into play to give Tesla a premium valuation that it truly deserves over the long term. Not in the short term, not presently, but over the long term. And so really that's the disconnect between investors that are positioned short or long on Tesla, especially analysts on Wall Street, because they are the big money, and the big money is really what kind of moves the stock. And until they get their heads wrapped around the whole idea and the concept of all of this materializing into actual numbers, there's just not going to be a lot of love for Tesla, for moving it higher. So that's where we are. Tesla, of course, dropping lower, probably one of the weakest stock in the markets today. And then, of course, if you come over to some of the other names that were selling off quite a bit, we did have companies like Apple, as we already discussed, Broadcom, Adobe, Netflix, Costco, selling off quite a bit, anywhere from 0.5% to as much as 2%. Salesforce, then we had ServiceNow and Pfizer also selling off. Now, we did have the inflation numbers come out today, so PPI numbers were scheduled. So we'll break down some of the economic calendar items as well as the earnings. And also Monday, the markets are going to be closed in observance of Columbus Day. I'm going to have to double check that, because we do have Columbus Day on Sunday. That's going to be on October 13th, Columbus Day weekend. So I'm guessing it's going to be a longer weekend with markets closed on Monday, but I'm going to have to double check that and get back to you guys on Discord. But JP Morgan coming in with a double beat, $42 billion in revenue, just over $4.37 in earnings per share. Wells Fargo missing on revenue, but a huge beat on EPS. BlackRock beating on both accounts. BNY Mellon also missing on revenue, but beat on EPS at $1.52. The entire banking sector, as I showed you guys earlier, was higher, and we've got a huge earnings season getting started with Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson, IBKR, United Health, Charles Schwab, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, PNC, Travelers, all these companies reporting next week, including Netflix. We got Intuitive Surgical, Procter & Gamble, American Express, Morgan Stanley, Abbott Laboratories. There's going to be a lot on deck for earnings season getting started. We're a little bit lighter on the economic calendar because we don't really have any medium to high impact items next week on the economic calendar. But going over today's numbers, core CPI year over year is sitting at 2.8%. versus estimates of 2.7, so coming in slightly hotter than what the expectations were. And then, of course, headline PPI year over year sitting at 1.8%, still accelerating higher from an estimated 1.6%, however, lower from the previous number of 1.9. If you come over to core PPI month over month, increasing by 0.2%, and then headline PPI month over month increasing essentially flat. So there was no change of 0% as well. And like I said, we are pretty light on the economic calendar for next week. So if you remove for low and medium impact items, we're essentially only looking forward to retail sales, some building permits, and some other FOMC member speeches as well. So we're pretty heavy on the earnings calendar as the earnings season is getting started, but light on the economic data that's coming out. So that's where we are. The Moneyvest index is going to be in and around those levels at close to 3.8 and 3.89 in around those levels. Of course, we've seen a little bit of a pullback. However, it's going to start rotating back higher as the markets are hitting new all-time highs once again, and it's doing that on the back of a pretty elevated volatility, which I've talked about before, that despite VIX staying above 20, which again on all previous accounts has been a bit of an elevated level for the VIX, yet the markets continues to move higher. And if you compare that to where we were back in the first week of September, it is again a little bit more unusual for the markets to keep ripping up, keep seeing that broader momentum on the back of a elevated VIX. And my guess is, and again, this is my understanding of why this is happening, is because markets are still hedging for that potential uncertainty around elections and the FOMC and rate cuts. However, there's also new money that's actually now starting to enter this market, because any type of dip, any type of pullback, any type of red in the market gets bought up fairly quickly, because markets in general seem to be right now very underinvested in the market. There's been a lack of risk appetite, and so any type of a pullback gets bought up fairly quickly in this market. And so we're seeing some new money stepping in as this rotation somewhat continues to a bit more risk on rallies that we're seeing. However, today was once again a little bit back over to risk off as utilities, financials, and staples kind of rallied higher on the day. Of course, Tesla leading the technology lower. US oil, so crude oil prices back above $75, so up over 19 basis points, but getting back up to 76 at one point, and we're keeping a close eye as much as 81 to as low as $83 per barrel for crude oil moving forward. Now coming over to the markets, starting with S&P 500. By the way, Celsius is quite crazy, pushing up quite aggressively yesterday, up over 13-14%, and dropping over 6% on the day today. But S&P 500 closing above 5,800 for the first time ever. Nice little breakout from this consolidation and a very nice move to the upside to new all-time highs. So support levels are going to stay put right about there, as we've already discussed. This right here is a little bit of a breakout from this ascending triangle. And this worked out pretty well because what you'll notice is getting rejected here. So you'll notice that we sold off, made a higher low, pushed higher, sold off again. That's a higher low. So that's an ascending triangle. Got a bit of a breakout, retest, and then a rally further for S&P 500. So technicals are essentially spot on with this ascending triangle breakout, retest, continuation for this index right now. The NASDAQ, on the other hand, also kind of coming up to its upper range of this higher high and higher low. So this right here is the entire uptrend for NASDAQ. So that right there is where we're going to be sitting for a potential target on the NASDAQ, sitting roughly at 18,450, 18,500, all the way up to as much as 18,600 for the NASDAQ as well. Now coming over to Apple, and let's just go over to Tesla first. And Tesla, of course, with a huge breakdown. And we discussed that there's going to be a 5 to 7% sell-off in Tesla, and of course it blew past that 225 area of support essentially gapping down heavily, some extensive selling pressure to the downside, and that next support really is going to be down here at $208 per share. We're going to go ahead and get rid of all these resistance or support levels, and we're going to go ahead and turn this level back into a resistance now for Tesla. And that's why it is so important to hedge your positions. If you're not hedging your positions, you're just opening yourself up for an unrealized loss. Because look, I know when a stock price goes down, it's very easy to come out and start bashing that company. It's the easiest thing to do, right? It's not a difficult thing to do. It's one of the most easiest things you're ever going to do in the markets is bash the stock that's already going down. That's what we saw with Meta. That's what we've experienced with PayPal. That's what we've experienced with Nvidia. That's what we've experienced with so many companies in the past, even Tesla when it was down at low 100s, that there's going to be a lot of people that don't believe in that company, in the stock over the long term, because they just cannot envision what the long term is going to look like for that company. A lot of new technological advancements get dismissed in the beginning at the early stages of when they're getting rolled out because everybody expects perfection. However, the companies that are actually putting their hard efforts into this, right? Understand that it takes a lot of iterations. It takes a lot of work to iterate year after year, right? Putting in a lot of work to make the product perfect before it can be launched. And so it is just a work in progress, right? Technology is always going to be a work in progress. And until we get it just right, Wall Street's not going to be happy. Analysts are not going to be happy. Investors in general are not going to be happy. People on YouTube are not going to be happy. So as long as you kind of have a long-term understanding of where the company's headed, understand the vision, and the same thing is true with Nvidia for 32 years. By the way, Jensen Huang was on CNBC today, and they were talking about the stock price and how much it's appreciated over the last 16 days, right? 16 days, the market cap has gone up another 45, 50%. That's incredible. At one point it was trading down to like low 100s again, and then it's rallied back up to like almost 140. So it's a huge gain. And they said, Jensen, there was a couple minutes he was there at the studio at CNBC, like in New York. 16 days, the stock price has gone up 48%. How do you feel? He said 32 years and 16 days. Not 16 days, 32 years and 16 days. And that's such a important lesson because a lot of the times people want to see the end result. They only want to see the end result. They want to see, overnight success. But what happens in the background is the story worth telling. And for Tesla, events like these, drops like these could very well be a small blip over the long term, right? For what they're building. It could fail, right? It could fail, but that's why we invest. That's the risk we take on when you're investing in a company's vision over the long term. Same with Nvidia. People who believed in Nvidia back when it was at, on a split adjusted basis, well in the low 100s or even at, $10 or $20, believed in that company, held on for the long term, waited a long time for it to finally do what it does now. One of the most successful companies in the world. So it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of belief in the company to be able to look at the long-term vision of the company. And the easiest thing is to come out here and simply bash the stock that's already down 8-10%. That's what we witnessed for Meta. So there's nothing new, nothing hard about it. So Tesla here down about 8.7%. I've already mentioned why that's the reason. There's been a huge disconnect, and support level is going to stay put at $208 with a resistance back up to as much as $235 for Tesla. So starting to break down from this uptrending channel, and that's going to be that support all the way down to inside this green rectangle sitting roughly at 180s. And I think sub 200 is a possibility given how much the bearish sentiment is on Tesla at the moment. Coming over to Nvidia. Nvidia here continues to move higher. I am really considering just rolling out my calls all the way out to December of 24, collecting just another $4,000 or $5,000 in capital gains, moving up my call strike to 118 or 120, depending on where I can move it up to, and of course generate a nice little net credit along the way as well. And I will keep rolling until I can, before it becomes a little too crazy for me to roll out. But that next resistance is going to be 139 to as much as $140 for Nvidia, with support level sitting put roughly at $129 to $130, down to as low as $113 per share for Nvidia. So this right here has been a massive increase of 34% in a matter of just about 39 to 40 days. So very, very nice move to the upside. Talking a little bit about Apple here. Actually, we're going to go over Apple on this chart. And Apple here, again, a lot of consolidation sideways, still trading inside this symmetrical triangle. Resistance going to be all the way up to 232, 233, and support level here at 225 down to as low as 217. So this right here, again, a very nice little uptrend and a symmetrical triangle for Apple. Coming over to Amazon, Amazon also moving back up, however, tagging up to as much as $189, close to $190. And this right here is a huge resistance that we've talked about, all the way up to as much as this resistance at 193 for Amazon. If you do get a breakout above this level, next target's going to be back up to 196 to as much as $200, and support level is going to stay put right at 181 to as low as 171 for Amazon. So we got a very strong support there, also in line with that previous resistance support, and that next target's going to be 171 for Amazon. PayPal, on the other hand, pushing back higher. So again, we talked about a nice little pullback along the way because that's how markets work. And resistance is going to stay put at $80 and support level roughly at $76. And we're starting to see a little bit of that momentum back higher. This right here is going to turn back into a support. Of course, if you're able to close back above this level next week, and that target for me is going to be $88, $89 with the support level sitting roughly at $80 for PayPal. Visa, on the other hand, also coming up to its resistance, and that resistance is going to stay up at 278. Support level down to as low as 272. A lot of consolidation sideways for Visa in and around those levels, and target beyond the 270, it's going to be up to $282, and support level inside this green rectangle and that area of demand sitting roughly at $266 per share for Visa. So that's where we are. A lot of consolidation sideways. Next resistance and targets back up to 282. Support level down to 272 to as low as $266 for Visa. Coming over to AMD, so Advanced Micro Devices, after selling off from their AI event, pushing back higher, getting a lot of buyers to step back in. Resistance is going to stay put at 171 for AMD, and of course support level is going to stay put inside this green rectangle. So we've got a very nice uptrend of higher highs and higher lows. Resistance, like I said, it's going to stay put right about there, all the way up to as much as 186 for AMD. So very nice uptrend, higher highs and higher lows. Support level inside this green rectangle for Advanced Micro Devices. Coming over to a few different companies here. So Meta, of course, continues to trade near all-time highs, getting validated at that support at 581. Resistance back up to $602 for Meta. So a lot of consolidation sideways, and of course that's going to be that target support level at 582. Google continues to struggle just a little bit, still struggling to break out above this area of resistance and supply, pushing up over 82 basis points, but that right there inside this area of resistance and supply is going to be that level to keep in mind, and support level of course down to $153 for Google as well. Talking about Microsoft, and Microsoft also consolidating sideways. Resistance is going to be back up to as much as 432. Very strong area of support here in the low 400s, and we've also got a very oversold coming down to RSI, MACD, and L3 Banker Oscillator, so we may see some momentum back higher, and that target's going to be back up to 432 for Microsoft. And finally, we come over to Costco and Enphase. Enphase continues to be very weak, however, seeing some buyers to step back in, back over $100 per share. It is a potential trade idea that I may look into because of the fact that it's oversold on the RSI and the MACD, and the fact that the price has been coming down. Very strong area of support here in that green area of rectangle. That's the area of demand. Resistance back up to as much as 124 for Enphase. So a lot of consolidation sideways in that range for Enphase. Coming over to Costco, and Costco also consolidating sideways here. Support level 872, resistance back up to 919, 920 for Costco. So a lot of consolidation in that range for Costco as well. So that's going to be that area of support, resistance all the way up to 919 to watch for this company. So I hope you all enjoyed this video and a complete update on the markets. The bottom line is, of course, we did have a lot of really selling pressure, incredible selling pressure on the markets here, but definitely do take advantage of the sale right now. There is a 16% annual discount until the end of this month. Columbus Day weekend is also coming up, so definitely do take some time to learn and start hedging your portfolio with options. So that's going to be available as part of the 4 courses that are part of this Moneyvest education tier: fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and we also got the options course as well as the psychology of investing and money course as well. So link's going to be down below. Would love to have you on board. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Earnings calendar pretty heavy for next week. Economic calendar is going to be pretty light for next week as well, and markets at an all-time high. So congratulations to everyone in this market rally that we are seeing, with a very, very nice boom back up to all-time highs. As always, happy investing. I'll see you all in the next video.